Whoo, boy. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? What do you think? We have a 1994 Ford Mustang GT with 79,000 miles on the odometer. Let's get all this off of here. Now, I'll tell you a story about this car real quick. We paid $1,100 for it. That's the winning bid. And it cost $1,485 out the door. And here's the thing, I assumed, and that's where I made a big mistake, you should never assume when you're buying anything at Copart, but I assumed that this was an insurance car, and it's actually not. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Let me tell you why I'm nervous. It sold as an insurance auction car in 2015 to a local dealer in Oklahoma City. It has sat since October of 2015 until today. You're talking like 3.5 years this car has been sitting. So chances are the fuel is no good. Chances are it does not run. And I guess there is a distinct possibility that the odometer is incorrect also. Perhaps someone changed it out. I don't know. So I'm very nervous. I'm extremely nervous right now. But that's how it goes. So we're going to throw a jumper pack on it, and let's see if we can make it run after 3 years of sitting. All right, I got to give my shout out to Jump and Carry for the JNC 1224 they sent me. Link in the description for this thing. This thing will start anything, a diesel, a dump truck, 24 volt, 12 volt, doesn't matter. You cannot go wrong getting that. We got juice. Now it's time to see if she'll crank. And better yet, if she'll run, because that's what we need to know. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not optimistic about this. After sitting for 3 years, chances are the reason it sat so long is there's something wrong with it. So let's, because it sat so long, what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank the key over a few times, just turn it on and off, on and off, try to prime up the fuel. Got it in neutral. Here we go. Nothing. Nothing at all. Not even a click from the starter. Oh boy. Let me put you guys on pause and let me do some preliminary checking around to see what's going on here. All right, we're going to try this again. I found a wire disconnected by the battery, and apparently that had nothing to do with it. Great. I mean, my next guess would be a starter solenoid wire or something has been disconnected, a relay, fuse, I don't know. I'll keep looking. We'll figure it out. All right, so here's the deal. This is my bad. Now this, I don't believe this has anything to do with why it doesn't start, but this connector down here, some of you Mustang enthusiasts, maybe you know what this goes to. It's a little round connector by the battery. That was completely disconnected. So I plugged it back up and still nothing. I checked to make sure all the fuses are here. The relays appear to be here. Still won't start. But the fact is we're not driving this one home. That's not even a possibility. I screwed up. That's all on me. Now, some people might leave this out, omit it, hide it from the public view, not want to admit they made a mistake, but that's not how I do things here. I'm human. I screwed up. This thing is full of milkshake, completely full of water. So, does that mean the engine's bad? Not necessarily, but I'm going to say probably so. If it's been sitting, and according to the paperwork I have, it looks like it's been sitting for 3 years. If she has been sitting 3 years with water in the crankcase, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to be able to save this engine. The rod bearings are probably torn up. It was probably driven like this. Look at the belt here. The belt is chewed up over here. We've got another belt down here that's frayed and chewed up. You probably can't see it, but that one's all chewed up and frayed as well. I've got too much experience with this to have made such a stupid mistake. There's no excuse for it. Just no excuse for it at all. I screwed up. So it is what it is now. One thing I did notice is that it's got this tool under here, or not tool, but like this key, and you can see that this panel here has been kind of half, well, you know what I'm saying. This is that's shoddy. So there may be something. This is going to be a starter interrupt switch right here. I don't know, this may have a payment device in it that remote shuts off the starter's ability to run. So what we'll have to do is, once we figure all that out, we're going to take this plate off and get under here and basically disconnect. Thankfully, I'm good with wiring. We'll get under here, disconnect all the wires that are going to the ignition switch and everything. We'll make sure that that's taken care of. I'll check to make sure we've got continuity on the fuses. And I don't know. I really don't know. Set parking brake. Oh, we've got the convertible top button. I'm not giving up on her yet. I'm not. And if anything, I don't think it's a horrible buy at $14.85 out the door. Could have done better, could have done worse, but I mean, at the end of the day, what we have, I'll have to run a Carfax on it, but it appears we have a 79,000 mile Mustang GT convertible, possibly has a bad engine, but just because the engine is blown, possibly blown, there's still plenty of good, hard to find parts. These things are getting harder and harder to find. The upper intake, I don't think the valve covers are really worth anything, but we got a lot of engine components, including cylinder heads. We've got headers down here, and I checked the exhaust is custom. It looks like it says Borla on the exhaust mufflers. It's got cat deletes, so there's no catalytic converters. It's got MagnaFlow exhaust over here. So there are parts, and look at this interior. All right, now this is what makes me believe this is a 79,000 mile car. The interior on this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, beautiful, beautiful interior. The top is in excellent condition. The rear window, solid and in place, good condition. So, although it appears to be a dud at the moment, you know, maybe one of those things that we could either sell whole to somebody that wants to fix it up and still make a small profit, or maybe we could start selling parts off of it and make a little more money that way. For now, we're gonna give up and let it get towed to the house so I can look at it a little closer where I'm not out here and it's getting kind of wet and it's cold. That tire will not hold any more air. It's not completely flat, but apparently it's got a significant leak in it because I cannot get any more air in it than what's in it. And look at these cracks. Look at that. Like I said, there's no excuse. No excuse. If I had looked at this car a lot closer, paid more attention, I would have seen these signs and known to stay away from it. So things that you guys need to look for any of you noobs out there, look for a lot of rust buildup on the rotor. Look for tires that are completely cracking apart. You know, look at that rotor. That rotor is just completely covered in rust. Those things tell you right there it's been sitting a long time. Simple things like checking the oil, checking your coolant. These are things that could have prevented a mistake like this from happening. Let's get home. Okay, so it's obviously a little later in the day, and I'm not going to go through a step-by-step on how to remove a payment device, but I'll give you enough of a preview that you should be able to figure it out on your own. Payment devices are pretty simple, and there's probably a lot of dealers out there that are going to want to shoot me after explaining to you how to disable the starter disable device. So usually these things are going to be mounted up under the knee panel, the kick panel, or not the kick panel, this is the kick panel, the knee panel right here. Usually just take off your cover. In this case, there's a metal knee cover, a brace. You got your plastic cover that goes over it. And here is the payment device / key. Here's the thing, when I turn the ignition on, I can hear all the gauges light up. I can hear the fuel pump. Eek. The only thing that it's not doing is cranking the engine. And that tells me, once I see the disable device on it, that tells me that chances are this box right here is disabled. And literally, you'll see there's a couple wires. There's a small black wire right here. This small black wire is nothing more than a ground. I just broke it off. These two wires, these are the wires that will run up into the wiring harness of the car, and they're spliced in to the starter signal wire that goes from the key to the starter solenoid. And I'll be the first to admit it's really dark under here. It's difficult to see, but bear with me. This blue wire was connected to a red wire way up here, and you can't see my finger there. You can't see it. And the red wire right here is also connected to the other end of the starter signal wire. I cannot get this in there close enough to show you, but just trust me. All we got to do is clip it, splice it back together, and I'm not going to try to start the car. Once we splice that back together, I'll probably just bump the starter real quick. I'm not going to attempt to start. We're going to drain the oil and you know, put some fresh oil in it before we try doing anything. Now, like I said, we'll just try to bump this. I basically just cut those wires, spliced it together. Okay, so now we have starter engagement. So that was the problem. That's what I suspected it to be. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to wiring, oh man, I'm on top of my game on this. Wiring is where it's at for me. This is what the payment device looks like right here. There's a closer look at it. It's a Pro Lock, patent pending, all that crap. These are your interrupt wires right here. Like I said, it's real simple. Usually it's just two wires that basically cut off the signal to the starter, and it has to go through the box first, and one ground wire. Sometimes there's a GPS signal with an antenna. Sometimes you get these little key cards and stuff too, but overall payment devices are pretty simple to remove and disable from your car if you know what you're doing. Now we got to change the oil before we can hook up the booster pack, and let's see if it runs. All right, now I've got no doubt there's plenty of you wondering why we'd be changing the oil in a car that obviously has a blown head gasket. And my answer to you is, we don't know that it's a blown head gasket. What we do know is that there is water in the oil, and I am not going to start a car that's got a, you know, oil pan full of water in it. It's just not going to happen. So while we may be beating a dead horse here, I'm pretty comfortable spending $18 on some oil and just changing it out before we go any further. Oh wow, it's not good. That's not good. All right, now this particular car has two drain bolts. It's got one back here in the pan, and it's got another one right up here in the front, so take those off. All right, we're gonna start with the main bolt here, and this is a 16. Get ready, look at all that water. It's full of just liquid, just water, straight up water. Wow. This is real bad. This could be anything from a blown head gasket, a cracked head, a cracked cylinder wall in the block. It's really hard to tell. This thing could have been full of water when it got parked from the accident or something, and over the years of just freezing and thawing, it could have just completely cracked the block. It's not looking good. Not looking good at all. Okay, we've got the oil changed. I'll get a closer look for you of what this looks like here. I'll be honest with you, I didn't sense that there was any oil in it. It's a moth. Okay. It was more, I mean, not oil. I didn't sense there was any coolant in it. It seemed like it was just pure water. Didn't look like coolant, didn't smell like coolant. Looks like it's straight up water. So I have a theory that possibly this vehicle was running straight up water when it was involved in an accident. And at that point, the dealership that owned it bought it back from the insurance company, because it does have an insurance title from 2013, and then it sold back to the dealership at the same time in 2013. So the dealership parked it, intending to do something with it. Throughout the years, the water in the cooling system froze, thawed, froze, thawed, froze, thawed, and potentially cracked the heads, cracked the block. Who knows? We're getting close to starting it, but first we got to put some fresh oil in it. So let's drop it down off the jack stands and get it filled up with oil. All right, let's pour some fresh, cheap oil into this motor before we crank her up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're going to be really upset about this, but cliffhanger. I'm sorry to do it to you, but I got to. I haven't even tried to fire it up yet. I don't know if it's going to run or not, but this is where we're leaving the video. So stay tuned for the next one if you want to find out if this car is going to fire up. Comment below. I guess that's what I'd like. Comment below and tell me, do you think this car is going to run, or do you think it's just too late for it? Leave that comment below. Tell me what you think, and I'll tell you what I think right now. Honestly, I don't think it's going to run. And even if we do get it running, because there was already water in the oil, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be good. If it does run, it's not going to be good. And with gasoline that's 3+ years old in it, I'm not feeling it, guys. I'm not feeling it. I feel like this is just a bad deal. My fault, my stupidity for not checking things out better. And it is what it is. Live and learn, you know. But here's what we'll do. We will attempt to fire this up and get it running in the next one. So stay safe out there, everybody. I look forward to catching you in the next video. Peace. I only said that because everybody else is saying it's like, peace.